Hey there, everybody, and welcome to day 77 of the 100 Days of Narration. Whoa! Right. And because it's day 77, once again, we are doing a mystery book challenge. And to explain what the mystery book challenge is for newer listeners or what have you, basically, I will not say the title or the author of the particular book I'm reading today. And you can send in your guesses as to what the book is. Now, you can't just, if you can tell it's part of the series, like you can tell it's part of the Twilight series. God, why would I even read that? Well, if I did, I did read one book. But if I did read the Twilight series, you can't just say Twilight. You have to actually tell me the name of the actual book from the series it came from. So there's that. Don't comment on the actual video, on this actual video, with the name of the book, because then you'll just be giving your answer away to everybody. Instead, private message me over YouTube if you can. Some people have messaged me on Facebook previously, so you can do that as well, I guess. What other rules are there? Oh, you get one guess per account or what have you. So just don't guess a whole bunch of books at once. That's cheating, and you have to choose one book. Yeah. And what other rules are there? Oh yes, because last week nobody got the book. Nobody guessed the correct answer for the book. So this week there will be 2 prizes. So it jackpotted from last week to this week. So I will be looking at all the correct answers available, and I will be choosing 2 people from those answers using random.org. And they will win. Oh, I forgot to say what the prize was. They will win a 30-second message from me for whatever they would like, which can be something like, say, a phone message bank thing, or you want me to read something in a character voice, or you want me to read something in my normal voice, or what have you. 30 seconds. Some people have gotten like a 1 minute long, sometimes a little bit longer than that. I don't mind, but as long as it's not like, oh hey, here, read like the entire book type deal, or scream for half an hour from me. I'm fine with a lot of things. So yeah, there's that. And also, because last week nobody got the book, I'm going to go super easy. This is super easy mode this week. This week is super easy mode. It's again a themed week like the previous weeks I've had. So all the books in this particular week are part of the theme. You might be able to guess the theme as soon as I start reading, because that is how easy this book is. So let's go and read this book. It's quite magical. In fact, one might say it's quite sorcerous. No, that's a horrible thing to say. No. I might philosophize about how magical this book is. Yes, those are great hints, Edwin, for people who probably don't even need the hints once I do this. Anyway, let's start on page. Yeah, we'll start on page. There's no page number, but it's the start of another start of a chapter, so we'll go with that. And the chapter number would also be good. Blah, 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 blah. Chapter 9, The Midnight Duel. Harry had never believed he would meet a boy he hated more than Dudley, but that was before he met Draco Malfoy. Still, his first year Gryffindors only had potions with the Slytherins, so they didn't have to put up with Malfoy much. Or at least, they didn't until they spotted a notice pinned up in the Gryffindor common room, which made them all groan. Flying lessons would be starting on Thursday, and Gryffindor and Slytherin would be learning together. Typical, said Harry darkly. Just what I always wanted, to make a fool of myself on a broomstick in front of Malfoy. He had been looking forward to learning to fly more than anything else. You know you'll make a fool of yourself, said Ron reasonably. Oh, you don't know you'll make a fool of yourself, said Ron reasonably. Anyway, I know Malfoy's always going on about how good he is at Quidditch, but I bet that's all talk. Malfoy certainly did talk about flying a lot. He complained loudly about first years never getting on the house Quidditch teams and told long, boastful stories which always seemed to end with him narrowly escaping muggles and helicopters. He wasn't the only one, though. The way Seamus Finnegan told it, he'd spent most of his childhood zooming around the countryside on his broomstick. Even Ron would tell anyone who'd listen about the time he'd almost hit a hang glider on Charlie's old broom. Everyone from wizarding families talked about Quidditch constantly. Ron had already had a big argument with Dean Thomas, who shared their dormitory, about football. Ron couldn't see what was so exciting about a game with only one ball where no one was allowed to fly. Harry had caught Ron prodding Dean's poster of West Ham football team. I thought there'd be an apostrophe S there, but I guess not. West Ham football team, trying to make the players move. Neville had never been on a broomstick in his life, because his grandmother had never let him near one. Privately, Harry felt she'd had good reason, because Neville managed to have an extraordinary number of accidents even with both feet on the ground. Hermione I'm never going to say that right, am I? It's just always going to be wrong. Hermione Granger was almost as nervous about flying as Neville was. This was something you couldn't learn by heart out of a book, not that she hadn't tried. At breakfast on Thursday, she bored them all stupid with flying tips she got out of a library book called Quidditch Through the Ages. Neville was hanging on to her every word, desperate for anything that might help him hang onto his broomstick later. But everybody else was very pleased when Hermione's lecture was interrupted by the arrival of the post. Harry hadn't had a single letter since Hagrid's note, something that Malfoy had been quick to notice. Of course. Malfoy's eagle owl was always bringing him packages of sweets from home, which he opened gloatingly at the Slytherin table. A barn owl brought Neville a small package from his grandmother. He opened it excitedly and showed them a glass ball the size of a marble, which seemed to be full of white smoke. "It's a remember-all," he explained. "Gran knows I forget things. This tells you if there's something you've forgotten. To do." God, I hate. It seems like, I've reached the end. No, there's a little bit at the end kind of deal. It's like, okay. All right. I mean, okay. Look, you hold it tight like this, and if it turns red, his face fell because the remember-all had suddenly glowed scarlet. "You've forgotten something." Neville was trying to remember what he'd forgotten when Draco Malfoy, who was passing the Gryffindor table, snatched the remember-all out of his hand. Harry and Ron jumped to their feet. They were half hoping for a reason to fight Malfoy, but Professor McGonagall... Is that right? McGonagall? That is right, isn't it? Yes. But Professor McGonagall, who could spot trouble quicker than any teacher in the school... what was going there? They were half hoping for a reason to fight Malfoy, but Professor McGonagall, who could spot trouble... I'm getting that stupid line break. They were half hoping for a reason to fight Malfoy, but Professor McGonagall, who could spot trouble... damn it. They were half hoping for a reason to fight Malfoy, but Professor McGonagall, who could spot trouble quicker than any teacher in the school, was there in a flash. "What's going on?" "Malfoy's got my remember-all, Professor." Scowling, Malfoy quickly dropped the remember-all back on the table. "Just looking," he said, and he sloped away with Crabbe and Goyle behind him. "I'm gonna make Malfoy sound like this because he's such a jerk. Yeah, you're such a jerk, aren't you, Malfoy? Yeah, jerky jerkness. Jerky jerk. At 3:30 that afternoon, Harry, Ron, and the other Gryffindors hurried down the front steps into the grounds for their first flying lesson. It was a clear, breezy day, and the grass rippled under their feet as they marched down the sloping lawns towards a smooth lawn on the opposite side of the grounds to the Forbidden Forest, whose trees were swaying darkly in the distance. Wow, that is a long sentence. Right again. It was a clear, breezy day, and the grass rippled under their feet. It was a clear, breezy day, and the grass rippled under their feet as they marched down the sloping lawns towards a smooth lawn on the opposite side of the grounds to the Forbidden Forest, whose trees were swaying darkly in the distance. That works. The Slytherins were already there, and so were 20 broomsticks lying in neat lines on the ground. Harry had heard Fred and George Weasley complain about the school brooms, saying that some of them started to vibrate if you flew too high, or always slightly flew to the left. Their teacher, Madam Hooch, arrived. She had short grey hair and yellow eyes like a hawk. Well, what are you all waiting for?" she barked. "Everyone stand by a broomstick. Come on, hurry up." Harry glanced down at his broom. It was old, and some of the twigs stuck out at odd angles. "Stick out your right hand over your boom. Stick out your right hand over your broom," called Madam Hooch at the front, "and say, 'Up! Up!'" everyone shouted. Harry's broom jumped into his hands at once. Harry's broom jumped into his hand at once, but it was one of the few that did. Hermione Granger's had simply rolled over on the ground, and Neville hadn't moved at all. Perhaps brooms, like horses, could tell when you were afraid, thought Harry. There was a quaver in Neville's voice that said only too clearly that he wanted to keep his feet on the ground. Madam Hooch then showed them how to mount their brooms without sliding off the end, and walked up and down the rows, correcting their grips. Harry and Ron were delighted when she told Malfoy that he'd been doing it wrong for years. "Now, when I blow my whistle, you kick off from the ground. Hard," said Madam Hooch. "Keep your broom steady, rise a few feet, and come straight back down by leaning forward slightly. On my whistle, 3, 2... But Neville, nervous and jumpy and frightened of being left on the ground, pushed off hard before the whistle had touched Madam Hooch's lips. "Come back, boy!" she shouted, but Neville was rising straight up like a cork shot out of a bottle. 12 feet, 20 feet. Harry saw his scared white face look down at the ground, falling away, saw him gasp, slip sideways off the broom, and wham! A thud and a nasty crack, and Neville lay face down on the grass in a heap. His broomstick was still rising higher and higher, and started to drift lazily towards the Forbidden Forest and out of sight. Madam Hooch was bending over Neville, her face as white as his. "Broken wrist," Harry heard her mutter. "Broken wrist," Harry heard her mutter. "Broken wrist," Harry heard her mutter. "Come on, boy. It's all right. Up you get." She turned to the rest of the class. "None of you is to move while I take this boy to the hospital wing. You leave those brooms where they are, or you'll be out of Hogwarts before you can say Quidditch. Come on, dear." Hogwarts. "You leave those brooms where they are, or you'll be out of Hogwarts before you can say Quidditch. Come on, dear." Neville, his face tear-streaked, clutching his wrist, hobbled off with Madam Hooch, who had her arm around him. No sooner were they out of earshot than Malfoy burst into laughter.
Did you see his face, the great lump?
The other Slytherins joined in. Shut up, Malfoy, snapped Parvati Paddle? Snapped Parvati Paddle.
Oh, sticking up for the Longbottom. All the Slytherins are going to sound exactly like this. Oh, sticking up for Longbottom, said Pansy Parkinson, a hard-faced Slytherin girl. Never thought you'd like fat little crybabies, Parvati. Look, said Malfoy, darting forward and snatching something out of the grass. It's that stupid thing Longbottom's Grand sent him.
The Remember-All glittered in the sun as he held it up. Give that here, Malfoy, said Harry quietly. Everyone stopped talking to watch. Malfoy smiled nastily.
I think I'll leave it somewhere for Longbottom to collect. How about up a tree?
Give it here, Harry yelled, but Malfoy had leapt on his broomstick and taken off. He hadn't been lying. He could fly well, hovering level with the topmost branches of an oak. He called. There should be a comma there. Come
and get it, Potter.
Harry grabbed his broom. No! Shouted Hermione Granger. Ah, that name! And why is it always the full name? You know, other characters like the last name or the first name, but Hermione, it's always Hermione Granger. Always. It's like, no, you'll never remember the name of the character if we just like give her first name or her last name. No, we're gonna say her full name every single frickin' time. Let's continue. No! Shouted Hermione Granger. Madam Hooch told us not to move. You'll get us all into trouble. Harry ignored her. Blood was pounding in his ears. He mounted the broom and kicked hard against the ground, and up he soared. Air rushed through his hair, and his robes whipped out behind him, and his robes whipped out behind him. And in a rush of fierce joy, he realized he'd found something he could do without being taught. No, let's try that again. And in a rush of fierce joy, he realized he'd found something he could do without being taught. This was easy. This was wonderful. He pulled his broomstick. He pulled his broomstick up a little to take it even higher. He pulled his broomstick up a little to take it even higher, and heard screams and gasps of girls back on the ground, and an admiring whoop from... What the hell, man? Ooh, sorry, hit the mic. He pulled his broomstick up a little to take it even higher, and heard screams and gasps of girls back on the ground, and an admiring whoop from Ron. He turned his broomstick sharply to face Malfoy in midair. Malfoy looked stunned. Give it here, Harry called, or I'll knock you off that broom.
Oh, yeah?
Said Malfoy, trying to sneer, but looking worried. Harry knew somehow what to do. He leant forward and grasped the broom tightly in both hands, and it shot towards Malfoy like a javelin. Malfoy only just got out of the way in time. Harry made a sharp about turn and held the broom steady. A few people below were Jesus, what is wrong with me? It's like every sentence is like it's like I'm expecting another word to be there, but it's not there, so I get tripped up because it's I'm doing the word substitution thing again. It's really, really annoying. Let's try that entire paragraph again. Sorry, folks. Just going to do this again. Harry knew somehow what to do. He leant forward and grasped the broom tightly in both hands, and it shot towards Malfoy like a javelin. Malfoy only just got out of the way in time. Harry made a sharp about turn, and held the broom steady. A few people below were clapping. Okay, second time through was better, but still. I should be able to... oh, God. This is annoying. No Crabbe and Goyle up here to save your neck, Malfoy, Harry called. The same thought seemed to have struck Malfoy.
Catch it if you can, then,
he shouted, and he threw the glass ball high into the air and streaked back towards the ground. Harry saw, as though in slow motion, the ball rise up in the air and then start to fall. He leant forward and pointed his broom handle down. Next second, he was gathering speed in a steep dive, racing the ball. Wind whistled in his ears, mingled with the screams of people watching. He stretched out his hand. A foot from the ground, he caught it, just in time to pull his broom straight, and he toppled gently onto the grass with the remember-roll clutched safely in his fist. Almost got through that entire paragraph just right. Harry Potter! His heart sank faster than he'd just dive. Professor McGonagall was running towards them. He got to his feet, trembling. Never, in all my time at Hogwarts... Professor McGonagall was almost speechless with shock, and her glasses flashed furiously. How dare you? Might have broken your neck. It wasn't his fault, Professor. Be quiet, Miss Patil. But Malfoy, that's enough, Mr. Weasley. Potter, follow me. Now. Harry caught sight of Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle's triumphant, and the sentence ends there. And we'll leave it there. So, did you guess? What book this was? Did you guess it? Did you? If you did, then private message me over YouTube the answer, or whatever means you can get me the answer, and you can go in the running to win that 30-second message I mentioned before. Anyway, that was day 77 of the 100 Days of Narration Challenge, Mystery Book Challenge number 11 being today. I hope you will join me tomorrow, where I will go on with the other books part of this series, and also to find out who the winner is for this particular challenge. All right, thank you. See you all tomorrow. Hey, you seem like a cool, wonderful, and/or awesome individual with impeccable taste in voice actors. So why not follow me on Facebook or Twitter? You can keep up with the latest projects I'm in, or that my friends are in, or that you could be in, because I occasionally post links to open editions to various projects that require voice acting out there, or that nobody's in, but they're interesting projects nonetheless that you may also find interesting. Also, lots of random thoughts about whatever's on my mind at that particular moment. Usually it's about food or video games, or foodie video games. Anyway, you can follow me on Facebook at OmadonVA or Twitter at Omadon. Hope to see you there.